Hello.
Hi.
It was a long countdown. I feel like I froze for a few seconds there, like 3, 2, 1, and then 0.
I think that's all the time it needed for me to become a bit nervous, but now I feel really ready. So good morning, everyone who has already joined us. We are super happy to have this webinar today. And both me and Sofie just put down our blinds because we are in sunny Stockholm. And we thought it'd be super nice, actually, before we dive into the content, if everyone who wants to would want to share in the chat where they are, where they're located and where they're watching from. So we get a little bit of a connection to you. I'm in southern Stockholm, and Sofie is also south of Södermalm. But it would be super fun to see from where.
You don't have to be that specific. No street required. But it's fun. Sometimes when we do this, we get very random answers, or we get surprised by someone calling in from another continent somewhere.
Yeah, but super nice. We have Stockholm, we have Oslo, Gothenburg, also Ludvika, my home turf, and we have Ljubljana. That is surprising, I would say.
Yeah.
Slovenia is maybe not what I expected. So nice. And we also have the Netherlands with us, and Finland.
And Finland, yes. Munich. Good to see. It's
amazing.
It's great with those topics that really engage across the globe, or at least across Europe.
Exactly. I think that's really what CSRD has proven to be, something that brings people together. Or not. We'll see if I feel the same after today. But super nice to have so many people joining us. We are very excited. So we're just going to get started. So we have because we have a lot to share, basically. But before we begin, I want to introduce myself, and I also want to introduce my colleague who is with me today. And I also want to introduce SustainLab. Who are we, and who is hosting this webinar today? SustainLab is a software company. We are founded in the belief that we want to help companies move from A to B as they work with their sustainability and their sustainability data. We have a platform that's really the center of our work, where we support our customers with data collection and reporting, and now particularly reporting towards CSRD, which is a major driver of sustainability, I would say, and I think Sofie agrees. The company was founded by Maria Svantemark and Kamal Hakimzadeh in 2020, and I think the reason I really like to say that is because they come from two very different worlds, and when they started SustainLab together, they really created this intersection where data and sustainability really found home. And we really believe that having access to sustainability data is access to knowledge, and knowledge helps you make good decisions. So that's quickly about SustainLab, and quickly about me, incredibly quickly. My name is Clara Edwards. I work at SustainLab as the Sustainability and Partnerships Coordinator. So I work both in our customer team and our sales team, and I also work a lot with our partner ecosystem, which is super fun and super valuable because there's so much knowledge and expertise there. And I have with me today Sofie Bergdahl, who happens to be the product owner of our CSRD software. And I think that's really important to highlight because she works really close with our developers team. But she also has a history of working in our customer success team. And with that, she brings a deep understanding of the customer needs. And I think that really is leveraged into product development. So hi from both of us. And I'm going to let Sofie talk way more after. So I hope that was an okay introduction, Sofie.
Thank you.
Yeah, but before we dive even further, I just wanted to start a little bit by talking about the title of this webinar. We have named it How to Navigate CSRD Resources. But just to set the expectations correct, I wanted to just explain what do we mean when we talk about navigation, and what do we mean by CSRD resources? What are those two concepts? And I usually show this picture because I think it's a great way of exemplifying how working towards a CSRD report could be. There's lots of twists and turns and different surprises along the way. But in our world, navigating the resources that we're going to show you today is really about understanding what they are, what the purposes are for respective resources, and taking them out of their silos, because it's easy to look at them one by one. But the next part and the next level maybe is to connect them to each other. How do they interact? How do they connect to each other? And how to make the best use of them for their respective purposes. And we're going to walk you through some of the primary resources we use. Not all, because that would be a lot more, but we have chosen what we focus on. And what that would mean is partly this. Of course, we want to look into the ESRS standards. That is one of the best resources to understand and look at CSRD from. But we want to move a little bit beyond surface level knowledge and give you some suggestions on what to read up on and why you should read up on those particular parts. We're going to look at the data point list, and Sofie is going to show you the strengths of it, but she's also going to highlight some of the weaknesses of it. And then we're going to also go through how you can get updates and how you can keep in the loop from the EFRAG's Q&A resources and the EFRAG's newsletter. And I think this is really important because this is a primary source of knowledge as we live in a time where there's a lot of news and a lot of overwhelming information coming from different ways, especially now with the new the leak that we might talk about in the end of today. And finally, we're going to look at the CSRD module that we have in our software, just to show you how a ESG platform and software can be a resource in itself. Just some simple reminders of the housekeeping. As you could see in the beginning, you're very welcome to ask questions in both the chat, but also in the question tab in this webinar in the software. And we are aiming to have questions about 5 to 10 minutes at the end. So please ask away. And if you have any questions for clarifications, of course, we'll try to take them throughout the webinar. But without further ado, Sofie, I'm leaving the floor to you. Where should we start?
Yeah, thank you. And actually, I want to start where we perhaps got a little bit too excited in the beginning, so we missed some of the practicalities. I see Mia, you ask a question here if we will send the links after, and yes, we will do that. We will also share, correct me if I'm wrong, Clara, but the recordings, right?
Yes. So everyone who's signed up to the webinar and everyone who's here today will get it sent directly after.
Yeah. Okay. And as you said there, Clara, we have a chat and we have the question box. So if you type in the questions, they will be visible only for us. And if you type in the chat, feel free to do that. But then it's going to be displayed for everyone. Okay. I'm excited to get going at least. So where I will start is actually on EFRAG's website. And that is because that is a really good source that I want you all to be aware of and how to navigate it. So I will just share my screen here. Let's choose this one. And it will be a little bit for me to jump between both my presentation and the browser. So bear with me if I struggle a little bit with all the different links, but I think this will go quite smooth. So this is where I would like to start. And you see my screen, right? Can you confirm it, Clara?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is where I would like to start. And this is because EFRAG is actually a very good source. And they have nowadays a very good website. It was updated, actually, I think it was sometime during the fall. And I really think they improved it a lot. So it's easier now to navigate it. But going to efrag.org/n is the good starting point. And then what we want to look into here is, of course, the sustainability reporting section. They are also working with financial reporting and other things, but I think this drop down here is where we will spend most of the time. First of all, where I want us to start is in the sector agnostic standards, and this is relevant, this is the standard that Clara also showed on the first slide there, but just for you also to know where to find it. I know many just send those links around, and perhaps you have a downloaded copy from or of the standard, but don't know where to find it if you want to make sure that you actually have the latest updated version. So it's important to know that it's here, and then the sector agnostic standards. We will look in a little bit deeper to the standards in a bit, but I just want to do some like stops at the different resources first. Why those are called the sector agnostic standards is because those are the standards that are relevant to all companies, but perhaps you know that it's also that we also expect the sector-specific standards to be released in a couple of years, but for now it's the sector agnostic standards that are relevant. So what you have here, if you scroll down a little bit, is on the one hand the official document of the standard, and this link is super important because this is the adopted version of the standard, and I guess that most of you have seen it before. But if you click on that one, you will get to the very slow right now. Well, you will get to the version of the standard that was adopted in 2023, or adopted in July 2023, and then published in the official journal in December 2023. Don't know why it takes so long time, but perhaps you have been at this page before where you can access the standard in different languages. We will see if it works better in a bit. I also think this link is very important because this is actually the same document as the one that is published in the official journal, but here they have divided the standard into different sections, so you can easily jump between the different chapters if you want to start in one specific standard or a specific application requirement. So sorry about this, but that to state the difference here, this is just a very long PDF file with about 300 pages that you have to scroll or learn about the different page numbers, which is not a very useful or like very well, it's smarter to be here. And here you can jump right to the chapter that is interesting to you. And this is also the document that is linked from the data point list. So I think those two links are very good to be aware of, the official journal and this one. They like links at EFRAG, is something that we have said a couple of times internally, because very often it's like click here, click here, click here, and then everything takes you to one and the same place in the end. But these are the exact same links that I show here, but just direct links to the different chapters that you have here on the left-hand side. So I think those are very important for you to be aware of. And I think one misconception here is that those documents constantly change, or that some updates, that they are updated frequently. You can hear that sometimes when you talk with people, feeling, CSRD is so hard to work with because they update it all the time. And that's not really true, because those documents have been the same since they got adopted in July 2023, and when they got published in December 2023. Nothing have changed since. What do change, though, are the supporting documents that are explanatory notes on how to interpret those documents. And that is because people like us and like you who work with the different documents identify different discrepancies from the supporting documents to those documents that we have here. And then they can submit this feedback to EFRAG, and then the supporting document updates. But those documents have been constant since they got published. Now I think we can access, let's skip that part. These are then the sector agnostic standards. I also want to just super quick mention something about the sector specific standards, and those are expected in a couple of years from now. So there's nothing really here that we can rely on yet. But if you are in any of the sectors that are relevant or that are mentioned here, where we expect a sector-specific standard to be released, you can also stay updated here and be a little bit proactive when things will actually be released. So just jumping in here to the mining, quarry, and coal sector you can read up here a little bit and see and identify whether you will be affected of it. And you can also access the meeting notes. And here you see, as of now, they have no upcoming events. So it doesn't seem like it's super frequent progress here, but you can access the old documents and the old meeting notes here to see where they are and what to expect in the future. So that's the standards, but then I also talked a little bit about the supporting documents that serve as complementary documents to the standards to make the implementation a little bit easier. And for now, we have 3 implementation guidelines that are released by EFRAG, and they are working on a 4th one, which is related to the transition plan. So implementation guideline of the transition plan for climate within the E1 standard. But what is released now is, on the one hand, the materiality assessment guideline, you have the value chain guideline, and then you have the list of ESRS data points. And we will focus most on this one for now. But here you need to click on this link, and then you will get to the full list of the documents related to all of those 3 topics. And those are always called IG, and that stands for Implementation Guideline. So if you see that IGMA stands for IG Materiality Assessment, IGVC is Implementation Guideline for Value Chain, and then the same IGDP is for data points. I think many of you have seen the data point list from EFRAG, and that was also part of Clara's screenshot in the first slide. But I also want to highlight here that they have an explanatory note where you can also read a lot of information about the different columns that are displayed in the data point list, so you know what you see there. So let's look at the data point list. Let's see if EFRAG wants to collaborate. I think you have seen this. Most of you have seen this document before, but here you have all the different data points from the standards broken down into what you actually need to disclose in what format and some more additional information. We will also stop at this data point list and look into some more examples here in a bit. So I just show you now very briefly so you know what I'm talking about. The cover note is also super important. So if you are working with the data point list, make sure that you also read through the cover note so you know how to interpret the different information that is provided through this data point list. But also one more thing here that is important is that they also sometimes release updates to those documents. So as I mentioned before, the standard itself hasn't changed, but the supporting documents, they are updated when people provide feedback, and EFRAG realize that they have made something wrong in the supporting documents, and there are a discrepancy between the supporting document and the actual standard. And that happened actually just a few months ago in December 2024, that they actually updated the data point list, and they deleted a few data points, they added a few data points, and they changed the name of a few data points. So this is also a document that is relevant for you if you're working a lot with this data point list. So here you can see that all the green ones here were added, while the red one was deleted, and some of them have been changed. So I think 2 points here. One is that I know many of you are working with this one, and I also know it's quite common to use this as the primary source that you are working with, but it has some limitations, and it is that this isn't the actual standard that was adopted. So some things can be wrong in here, and we have seen that with this amendment that came in December. So make sure to also use the standard as your primary source and this as a supporting document and not the other way around. The other thing is like, how do you stay updated on all of those things, and how to make sure to be informed when such an amendment happens. And there I really want to highlight that EFRAG has a subscribe button here where you can access the newsletter. that's also really good. So you can buy that, get access to the newsletters, and then be updated when those things happens. Super short also on those newsletters. One thing is that you will get information about these kind of updates, but also that you can follow different topics that you are interested in through their meeting notes. I can show you here just, I can show you here what it can look like in your email inbox if you are a subscriber to EFRAG's email list, that you will get information on when they have different meetings and the different meeting agendas for those meetings. And this is actually really good. So then you can go from the link in the email and just access all the documents that they are looking into during the meetings. You can watch their meetings online, and you can also watch the recordings afterwards or access all the different documents that they are discussing during the meetings. So I know that this is kind of a full-time job to stay updated, but it's important to make sure that you don't work with things that are not longer relevant or rely on older documents when you prepare your sustainability statement according to ESRS. Last thing, we will jump into the data point list in a bit, but last thing I also want to show you here is the Q&A platform, and that you can access also from the sustainability dropdown, the Q&A platform you have here. And this is, of course, where you can actually, as a preparer, go in and ask questions to EFRAG. So if you find something that doesn't look very well in the standard or in the supporting documents, or if it's something that you feel is hard to understand, then you can send in your question to them, and then they will compile a document for you and share with everyone where they answer those questions. And you can also see the different questions that have already been submitted. And this is a source that I use a lot now when we work with the CSRD module, where you can get access to, I think it's a couple of 100 questions now that they have actually answered. So there are 2 documents here, one which is a compilation of questions from January to November, and the other one a compilation of the questions from December, where you can find further explanations of the different paragraphs in the standards. So yes, that was a very quick run through of EFRAG's website and very valuable resources that you have here. And I know this is a little bit overwhelming, and I totally understand. I don't expect anyone to be very updated on all of those resources, because this is really a full-time job to stay updated on this. But we will also show you what we do with all those resources to make sure that we have a tool that can be easier for you to use than to read all of those documents.
Thank you so much, Sofie, for that overview. I think it's so important to get the understanding of the flows. And as you say, this is really the best source to look for the real answers and not just interpretations or other interpretations. This is a place where you can make your own. And I know a lot of companies and a lot of people out there are really worried. But as you are pointing out, the changes that are being made here are in most ways clarifications and rather something new. And I think what I really like about this, both the Q&A but also EFRAG's work, is that it's really a co-creation process. So if you are out there and you want to actually contribute and take a more active role, this is a really good forum to do it. And if you sit with a burning question, the chances are that another person or company out there is wondering the exact same. So take the time and fill it into the Q&A platform, and you will get the best answer from the legislators. So I think that's really cool. And we actually got a question in the chat that I answered there as well, but whether we update this in our system as well.
Yeah. Yes,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. We work very hard to stay updated on all of those things. And sometimes we can do updates quite smoothly, and sometimes it requires that we actually take a step back, change what we have done, inform everyone that things have changed, and then we need to release another version. So it depends a little bit of what type of thing or what type of change it is. But I think I showed you this amendment to the data point list, and this is actually a very good example of where you can actually be proactive with your with the work by relying on the standards and not on the supporting documents. Because when this was released and we worked through the changes, we had actually some of them we had already implemented in our platform before this document were released, because we rely on the standard and not on the supporting documents. So we had spotted some of those missing data points already before this was released. So that's, as we rely on the standard doesn't change. We don't feel so concerned about those updates that come. But when they come, we will make sure to be updated and inform you about it. Yes, with that said, we will look in a little bit more to the standard, and I will do that from the presentation view instead. So now I'm back in the presentation. Do you see it as well, Clara?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so this is a very basic slide for many of you right now, or I guess you have spent a while on getting the basics about the CSRD already. But just to have everyone with us, we have 10 topical standards, which are those. And then we have the cross-cutting standards, where the ESRS 2 also holds disclosures on what you actually need to report on. So this is also part of the data point list that we will look into in a bit. But what I see often out there is that companies miss out on the ESRS 1 because they feel like, there's nothing in there that I need to disclose on. That's just general information. So let's jump in to see what I actually need to disclose. And I think that is quite a big mistake, because the ESRS 1 is where you get all the basics, all the important information on how to read the other standards. So I normally say that if you need to start somewhere, and if you read only one part of the ESRS standard, read ESRS 1. So that's something that I really want to highlight here. And we will from here look into some important things from ESRS 1 that I think is important that everyone knows if you look into the other standards at a later stage. So the objective of the ESRS 1 standard is that it is the drafting convention, and it presents fundamental concepts that are used across the other standards. And it's also the general requirements that you need to consider when you read all the other requirements as well. And I think this is super important. If you miss out on the fundamentals, then you will also miss out on some important parts in the other requirements. So an example of such fundamental concepts is, on the one hand, the sustainability topics or the sustainability matters. So if you have done your double materiality analysis already, you are probably aware of the topics, the subtopics, and the sub-subtopics. But something that I meet a lot is that not everyone knows that the subtopics and sub-subtopics and the topics are collectively referred to as sustainability matters. So when you read the standard and you read the data point list and come across the term sustainability matter, you don't know that what they are actually talking about is the topics, the subtopics, and the subtopics. And I think this is very important. Otherwise, you tend to miss out on how to report on those important concepts. Another fundamental concept is the IROs. I guess this is also known to you if you have done the double materiality analysis already. But what I want to highlight here is that you have the impacts, you have the risks and opportunities, and then those are collectively referred to as impact, risks, and opportunities, and then shorten it as IROs. And it's also very often in the standard that they make references to these concepts. And if you have identified your IROs in your double materiality analysis, you need to be aware that every time this term is referred to in the disclosures, it makes the reference to what you have identified throughout your double materiality analysis. The minimum disclosure requirements are also one of those fundamental concepts and the aim of those is really to manage the sustainability matters. And the sustainability matters is what I said before. It's the topics, the subtopics, and the sub-subtopics. So this is minimum, what you need to disclose as a bare minimum on each of those sustainability matters. And those shall be applied together with the disclosure requirements that you find in the standard. So if you read the standard, you also need to consider the minimum disclosure requirements for each of the topics. We have the policies, actions, and targets, sometimes shortened as PAT. The PATs are parts of the minimum disclosure requirements. So you need to disclose a bare minimum level on all policies, on all actions, and all targets in relation to the sustainability matters in relation to the IROs. So this is also hard perhaps to understand just from this webinar, but what I want to highlight here is that there are so many important parts of the ESRS 1 that you need to know about when you look into the other standards. And those actions and targets, those shall be disclosed or explained. So perhaps you have heard about that concept also, that either you say that you have it and then you explain it, or either you say that you don't have it and then you need to explain why you don't have it and if you will have it in the future. And this is a little bit different from the metrics, which is also part of the minimum disclosure requirement concept. But here you are not allowed to say like, I don't have an answer to that disclosure, so I just skip through it and say that I don't have it. But because when it comes to metrics, you are actually required to do an estimate. So if you don't have an absolute or accurate number, you need to do an estimation based on your best guess. And that's also explained in the ESRS 1 on how you do those estimates and what you need to provide in terms of additional narrative information. Running forward, so we have the disclosure requirements and we have the application requirements. And I think this is perhaps something that you have looked into if you are working with the data point list, but you have the disclosure requirement where it's stated exactly what you need to disclose, and then you have the application requirements that are that explains to you how to do the disclosure. Perhaps if it's a calculation formula that you need to consider, or if it's the description of the scope on what you need to disclose and so on, that can be explained well in the application requirements. So those also needs to be read in combination with each other. So that was a few of the general concepts, but also if you look into the general requirements, I think it's important to know that it's stated that if you have any uncertainty, you need to disclose that that's the case. You need to disclose what limitations you have with what you have disclosed. And the aim of that is to disclose information to enable the user or the person who reads your sustainability statement to understand how accurate your numbers or your disclosures are. So this is something that also needs to be disclosed. Every time you disclose a metric, you also need to disclose the methodologies. You need to disclose whether it's validated by an external body, and you need to disclose, you need to disclose in the currency that you use in your financial statement if you're disclosing monetary metrics. So all these are important things that are not part of the data point list that that the EFRAG has provided. This is just general requirements that every time this comes up, you also need to consider this. The last thing here is also related to comparative information. So this is not relevant the first year of preparation, but from the second year and on, you also need to disclose comparative information. So what did you disclose for this year, for this figure last year? Mostly for metrics, but sometimes also for narrative disclosures when it makes sense to do so. And then just et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And why I want to mention this is because this is so important information if you are working with the data point list as your main source for your ESRS preparations. So if we jump back here to the, let's see, I think it was this link. If we jump back to this data point list and just have a look here at the, zoom in a little bit, now I'm in, let's say we can go to the E1 standard. And we just have a look here at some of the numerical data points. So this one, for example, where you are supposed to disclose the percentage of remuneration recognized that is linked to climate-related considerations. This is just one data point, but if you also consider all the requirements from ESRS 1, you also know that it's not enough to disclose only this year's number. You also need to disclose the comparative year number, whether you have any uncertainties around what you disclose, what methodology have you used, and so on and so forth. And that's not visible in this data point list, so that's important also. Then we also have the minimum disclosure requirements that was part of the fundamental concepts that I also mentioned that needs to be disclosed as a bare minimum for each topic or each sustainability matter. And that we have those policies, actions, and targets. And you have them here divided between MDR-P policies, actions, and then you have targets here at the bottom. You also have the metrics here in the middle. And that means that those needs to be disclosed for each sustainability matter, meaning that if you go into E1 here again, you will see that you have those green lines where you have the policies starting and the policies ending, the actions starting and the actions ending. And then you need to replicate this for each subtopic and sub-subtopic and connect it to your IROs in the end. So again, it isn't so easy to just open up this document and start from the top row and then work through and feel like you have answered everything, because I don't think that will be enough to be compliant, and especially not when it comes to the XBRL tagging that are based on also the requirements in the ESRS 1. So with that said, what I want to show you at the last part here is, of course, how we work with those concepts and how we combine all this information when we work with the CSRD module in our platform. So I will quickly walk you through this as well. This is not a full demo, so if you are interested in how we work with CSRD in our module, please reach out to Clara after this session and she will give you a deeper demo than I will do now. But I want to show you just a few of those concepts. So where we are now is in the project overview of a project that I call CSRD 2025. And here you have all the sector agnostic standards. So you can access all the disclosures under ESRS 2, under environmental, under social, and under governance. And everything that I've talked about now from ESRS 1, it's not separated into a specific block here, but they are integrated into the other standards. And I will show you what I mean with that. If we can look at E1 as an example, which is the climate change standard, where we have the different chapters of the standard divided from GOV to E1.1 to E1, E1.2, 3, 4, and 5, and then the parts that are integrated into ESRS 2 as well, if you're familiar with that concept. And what you do here as a super user in the platform, or if you are in charge of the sustainability reporting in your company, is to work through each of those disclosure requirements, look at all the data points that comes from this document, the EFRAG list of data points, and assess whether they are material to you to report on or not. So we can start with this energy consumption and mix here. I've already been in and prepared a little bit, but we can have a look at all the data points where you can get them listed in the exact same way as we have in this file. But then when we get to the questions in the next part, it's where we have integrated all the ESRS 1 requirements as well. So here you have a lot of extra information in regards to each of the data points. You can also see the guidance. You can see whether it's a conditional data points, whether it's an effective date, or if you have a phase-in requirement related to this, and you can also read paragraph information. If there are an application requirement, it's not actually in this case, but if there are, you can also see the application requirement here. And then we have additional references that also make sense for this data point or help you to understand. If it makes a reference to somewhere else in the standard that you also need to know, then you can also access it here. You can assess the different data points as material or not material, depending on what you, whether you want to report on it or not, and then work them through one by one. If we go from here to the requests that will be sent out for you to start reporting, you can also see one example of those. While EFRAG only have one data point related to the consumption of nuclear, we have a few of them. So here we have the reporting year, and then we also have, so you can report on the comparative year. We can also ask you about the methodologies. So for example, if you are in a high climate impact sector, you will get some additional questions related to that, and you will also be asked about the methodologies and how whether there are any uncertainties related to your questions. So depending on what you ask, you will receive different follow-up questions in this case. Finally, the last point I also want to do in the module here is to show you about those sub and subtopics, because that's also one of the key concepts that we touched upon in the previous part. And if we go to E14 here, which is related to the targets, so this is related to one of those minimum disclosure requirements that we talked about in ESRS 1, you need to disclose it based on every sub and subtopic, meaning that we also need to provide you with the questions replicated for each of those sub and subtopics. So perhaps if you in your double materiality analysis have assessed mitigation as material and adaptation as materials, but perhaps not the energy section, then you will just, when you open up the energy part, jump in and say, no, I don't have it. Then you will skip over all the different questions related to whether you have it. And then the only thing you need to disclose is why you don't have it and when you plan to have it in place. However, if it is material to you and you actually want to disclose it, then you will receive a bunch of follow-up questions here where you can disclose your targets one by one, and you will get guidance on every question that you need to disclose for each target, either in this view or either in a form view where you can read a little bit more information related to every question or every requirement that you need to disclose in relation to this target. So I know this was just like jumping into two specific cases here in this module, but if you are interested in getting the full demo, that won't be covered in this session, but please reach out to Clara if you want to understand more how we have worked with all those concepts from ESRS 1 and get them integrated into an easy to use tool for you where you can disclose your CSRD data. I think that's it. We are running out of time. I know we have a few questions, but I will stop sharing my screen and then see whether we have time to answer one of them.
Great. Thank you so much, Sofie. And I think it's completely fine to go over time when there's lots of relevant information to share and to show. So thank you so much. And as Sofie said, you're super welcome to reach out to me or to anyone at SustainLab, really, and ask questions. If you sit after this session today and have burning questions, just send us an email and we'll try to support you in that. And we can take one more question, I'm thinking, now when we're still in session. And then we're going to stick around for a couple of minutes as if there's any more questions and if people want to stick around. But one question I think that we got in the chat in the questions tab was regarding the IG3 data point list, even if you have maybe reiterated the answer many times. But do you think it will be possible to remain compliant if you base your reporting from that?
Yes, I mean, I know many have used the IG3 data point list and used that as the main source, and many have also passed through perhaps the first auditing process now. Perhaps if you are not a Swedish company and you have been legally binded to report on CSRD already this year, you may have passed your auditing with only the IG3 list as your main source. And I think that we will probably see those cases. And I think it's also a work going on at the auditors right now to understand what is actually the requirements and how to assess this. But what is important to keep in mind is that on the one hand, the first year of reporting is only target for the limited assurance, and that will change for the next year and the year after. So the requirements will be tougher the further we are. And then the other part is that I think perhaps it works okay for the official sustainability statement that you publish in your annual report. But if you look into the requirements from the XBRL tagging, it won't be enough to be compliant with that, and that's the machine readable format that will be required by EU. So I think two different answers here. Like perhaps it might be okay for the first year, but if you want to also be prepared for what's coming, then I think it's important to be more detailed and don't use the data point list as your primary source and skip over the other important sources.
Great, thank you. And I think that is really where we are right now, that it's from a SustainLab point of view, we talk a lot about being prepared and working bottom up, working with granular data and really making sure that you're prepared for shifting and changes in the volatile legislation. But we have two questions that are very system specific, but before we answer them, I just wanted to reiterate that we will send out the presentation and all the links that Sofie has showed today, and you will also get the recording. And we want to just say a really big thank you for joining us if you have to leave, but we will stay and answer these two questions now. But thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. So great to see many.
Yeah, so we have two questions about the module, Sofie, whereas one is if you fill out all the questions in the CSRD module or CSRD system, will the system create a draft report out of it? And the second question is a clarification on the DMA results and how you enter them into the tool.
Okay, so perhaps starting with the DMA then, because that's the starting point of the journey. But we have built our module based on that you have done your CSRD, your DMA analysis before you jump into the CSRD module, and that is because we think it's important to allow more analysis than you can do when you are built into a quite boxed system in that sense. So most customers have started with the DMA before, and then when you open up and set up your project in the CSRD module, you will be asked about your results from the DMA. So you will fill in what sustainability matters are material to you, and then you also assess the data points based on your materiality. So it was not you missing it, it was me skipping over that part, but also please reach out if you want to have a full demo of the module.
And I just add to that, is that we do work with DMAs with many customers, but we do the analysis part of the software and the integration and the reporting of the DMA and documentation within the platform. But since we usually do it as one project, we work on the full scope, just separating for different purposes.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. Okay, and the other part was about the final report. And that is something that we are working on right now with some customers to understand what the format required. We are really monitoring now all the reports that get published from across Europe of companies who have reported on CSRD for this 2024 year. And we are working on how we can improve and make sure that we also have a good report in the end. But what we are allowing is export of the of all the data that you have put in, and we work with two streams here. So one is the report that you will use to build your design around and to put into your sustainability statement, and the other stream is related to XBRL tagging as well.
Great, and I think that's a really good reminder to have that the report is going to be used for different, both human readable formats and machine readable formats. So whatever way you choose to work with it, it's important to keep both of those in mind, so you don't go to just too much onto one of the sides, but both are required. But great, I think we're gonna wrap up there. So thank you all, and thank you all for listening in and all the lovely comments. Super grateful for that, and thank you, Sofie.
Thank you, Clara.
If you have questions after this, and if you are dying to talk more to us, we are super happy to do so. So please reach out. Okay.
Yes, we love to talk about this topic, so don't hesitate.